Coming up on Sowerby and Luff Deluxe, why was the town of Chepstow invaded by thousands of bees?
Was it?
This week.
OK. And BBC newsreader Clive Myrie mentions his wife once or twice during an Italian road trip.
And what is Copenhagen's most amazing chair?
I know.
This is Sowerby and Luff Deluxe.
On tape from Studio Senseless in leafy London town, it's Sowerby and Luff Deluxe.
There is a place where dreams live.
Hello, playmates. Make yourself a cup of tea.
OK.
Put the cat out and settle down for another riveting episode of Sowerby and Luff Deluxe. I'm Brian Luff.
And I'm Georgina Sowerby.
This week, you might be interested to know that Georgina and I are dressed as the Pet Shop Boys. With big white and orange pointy hats.
Yes.
And huge, weird glasses with little slots in them for our eyes. Why did you ask me about Hello Playmates? Have you not heard Hello Playmates before?
Is it something to do... I don't know. Is it something to do with Hugh Hefner?
No, Hello Playmates was the catchphrase of well-known
you say that.
Well-known British comedian Arthur Askey.
OK.
Who everyone's forgotten now, of course. You're too young to remember Arthur Askey, but he was on the radio all the time.
It's back when there was no television.
Even I'm too young to remember Arthur Askey.
Right, OK.
My dad's favourite comedian was Arthur Askey.
OK.
And he had an autograph of Arthur Askey in his autograph book.
Lovely.
Which we, of course, then subsequently, as a family, lost.
Right, OK. So he used to say hello, Playmates, when he opened his radio show.
Hello, Playmates, he would
Hello,
say.
Playmates.
Interestingly, he used to sing a song called The Bee Song.
The Bee Song.
Which ties in perfectly with one of our items today about
Was
bees.
it on
Bees in Chepstow?
the B side of the record?
No, and it was one of the most awful things you've ever heard.
You dismissed that very quickly, but I thought that was quite important.
It went...
The B-side.
It went, oh, what a wonderful thing to be, a healthy, grown-up, busy bee. That's how...
A healthy grown-up?
Yep, that was Arthur Askey's big song.
Busy bee.
Yeah, if you've never heard of Arthur Askey, guys, treat yourself. Go on to YouTube and find Arthur Askey singing the Bee Song.
Just quickly, though, I think you're distracting slightly from the fact that we're dressed as the Pet Shop Boys.
Yes, I thought every week now we'd dress as something different.
OK.
So I just happen to have these Pet Shop Boys costumes lying around the house.
Yes, it's like a traffic cone on the head, though, isn't it? It's a little awkward. It doesn't fit brilliantly over the headsets.
So let's get this party started.
Oh, party. Playmates.
It's Don't Bogart the Finger Monkey.
Don't bogart the finger monkey.
Georgina, under which rock have you uncovered the content for Don't Bogart the Finger Monkey this week?
The Slugs and I found lots of interesting news this week, but one of my favourite things this week was a man in Colorado, which starts off slightly different because usually you say a man in Florida, but this week it's Colorado. He was so drunk and in charge of his car that when the police started flashing behind him because he was swerving a little bit, when the police got to him, he was so drunk he thought it was a good idea to swap places in the front of the car with his dog.
That's a brilliant idea, though.
No, it isn't, though, because the police know the dog's not driving the car.
So when the police came up, the dog was sitting.
The dog was sat in the driver's seat.
Did it have its little paws on the driving wheel?
He's smoking a cigarette, going, "I'm sorry, Ossifer. Did I break the speed limit there?"
I might have imagined this, but I'm sure I have seen videos of dogs driving cars.
You have.
It is a thing.
It is, but I'm not sure it's legal. So, what would you rather get done for? Drunk in charge charge of your car or allowing your dog to drive your car. And I suppose the guy said, well, listen, I asked the dog to drive home. I've had one too many and I thought it way safe. I mean, it saves. Do you remember when people used to give their keys out in pubs and say, don't let me drive home? Because they actually knew they'd get in their car at the end of the night.
Do we know what breed of dog it was? Because that would make a huge difference. If I was a police officer and I walked up to a car, you know, with me flashing my torch around, you know, like they do.
Showing me badge.
If there was like a big, intelligent-looking dog, like say an Alsatian.
An Alsatian behind the
wheel.
wheel.
Or a St. Bernard.
Mm-hmm. Oh, a St. Bernard you'd trust,
and if it had its big paws actually on the steering wheel, then for one moment, I might think maybe the dog was driving. But if it was, say, a Chihuahua.
Couldn't reach. No, that would be silly because it wouldn't be able to reach the wheel.
Or a poodle. I think the dog most likely to be able to drive a motor vehicle would probably be an English sheepdog. Because they're bright animals, they're incredibly
aren't they?
bright. Yes. They've got great spatial awareness.
Yes, they're very good with sheep.
And I bet if you tested, in fact, they could have this as an event at Crufts, couldn't they? Every year, they could have a dog driving contest.
Oh, we could just get those little cars that children have because they're quite fancy and just get the dog to drive them. Why not?
Was the dog charged and was the man charged?
The man was not let off the driving under the influence charge, I'm afraid. Okay. So swapping with his dog didn't work. So, I mean, it's a warning to us all, isn't it?
Well, the copper probably also breathalyzed the dog and found that the dog was drunk as well.
Because it's St. Bernard, they carry alcohol around their necks, don't they? So
what else have you got for us on Don't Bogart the Finger Monkey, Georgina?
This is interesting because I often wonder how we managed to stay together for years and years and years. And it turns out they've done a psychological experiment this week. And it said that couples who lounge together report feeling closer and happier than couples who do healthy things together. And I'm thinking, that's probably because the loungers don't have enough energy to say that they're unhappy.
Lounge together.
We lounge together.
Lay around on a sofa.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Doing nothing at all. Yeah. And it's been proven that when interviewed, these couples stated they were a lot happier and a lot more comfortable with each other than people who say, went off and ran a marathon together or climbed a mountain together or all those healthy things that couples seem to do.
Maybe that's our secret, Georgina. I've always thought that, because we've been together 21 years now, haven't we?
We are good loungers.
I've always thought that the thing that's kept us together was doing this podcast.
No, but it's the fact that we don't do anything else.
Turns out that we lounge around. While we're on the subject of lounging, Georgina, we've got to get another sofa. That dent in my end of the sofa.
You've broken that sofa.
Is getting lower and lower and lower, and I keep putting cushions in there to kind of fill the gap.
Yes,
but my bum is getting lower and lower and lower and lower. I don't want a different sofa. I want the same sofa, but just newer. Well, without a dent in it.
It hasn't lasted 10 years, and that's not good for a sofa, is it? It hasn't. So basically, I don't think we should get the same sofa because I don't think it's fit for purpose.
We've had it for longer than 10 years.
Have we really?
Yeah, we must have done.
This is an argument.
Can you find the receipt?
For another time.
Find the receipt.
Oh, I can't find a receipt for something like...
I bet we've had that sofa for 15 years.
Wow.
I bet we have. In The Simpsons, Homer has his favourite dent, hasn't he, in his sofa? And
but there's a difference between dent and giant hole. Basically what's below your side of the sofa is a sinkhole, isn't it? That you disappear into every night and find it difficult to get out of.
No one else is allowed to sit in it. I'm like Sheldon.
No one else wants to sit in it.
You know Sheldon's spot on the sofa? I'm like that. No one else is allowed to sit on my spot.
I know. That's your broken sofa and you're sticking with it.
And you've got one more Don't Bogart the Finger Monkey.
Oh, this is my favourite thing. This is my favourite thing. I love a good chair. I do love a good chair, and chairs are the most underrated things in the universe,
So
I
we've
think.
segued very neatly there from
Yes.
sofas
It's almost like we're professional at
into
this.
chairs.
Splendid chairs, number 238. So we go to Rosenborg Castle in Copenhagen, and in the 17th century, they had a chair that trapped guests with clasps on their arms. Then it poured water over them, and they were released to trumpet fanfare that was built into the chair. Now, you know you've got a lot of money when you design a chair.
I'm not really following this.
Right. So it's a trick chair
Yeah.
in a royal palace.
Right.
And when someone sits on it,
Yeah.
they're immediately clasped by the hands.
Yeah.
So they're stricken to the chair.
No, hold on. What if they're sitting in the chair and they haven't got their hands on the arms?
Then you don't get trapped and you get off the chair, don't you?
Yeah, I guess so. So what's the purpose of this then?
It isn't. It's to entertain the king. The king found it entertaining that his guests sat on the chair. It looked comfortable. They sat down. They were then immediately impaled onto the chair. They then had water that was built into the chair. A bucket of water came over them. And while they were swearing, basically, the clasps came off. And an inbuilt trumpet. You see, that's what I can't get over. They had an inbuilt trumpet that used to do the as the guests were let off. You're so unimpressed by this. This is one fancy chair.
I think the sense of humour in Copenhagen must be very different from
Right.
ours. Can you imagine King Charles doing that at Buckingham Palace?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, maybe
I
you can.
could.
Maybe you
Yeah,
can.
why not?
He has got a sense of humour, hasn't he,
You've
Charles?
got lots of money, and you go, what can I do? I mean, there was someone we were watching on television last night. I think it was Antiques Roadshow, and the man had 400 clocks because he loved clocks. Now, you've got to have quite a substantial house to home 400 clocks. But can you imagine his wife every time she opened a birthday present or a Mother's Day present or a Christmas present, she looks at him and goes, "Honey, is it a clock?" And he goes, no, it's not a clock. It's not a clock. Open it and see. And she goes, "It's ticking." And he goes, "Oh, but it's not a clock." And she opens it and she goes, "Clock."
So I think one year he probably said, "No, I've bought you this lovely table," and she, that's what a lovely table. And he
That's
says,
great.
"To put this clock on." That was
400 clocks is 399 clocks too many.
We have to take your. I don't think we've ever mentioned this before. We have to take your clock out
Yeah.
of the studio, don't we? Georgina's
I
got a
know.
clock with such a loud tick.
I know, it's lovely. I find it really comforting.
And
It's a 1950s retro clock and it's beautiful.
Georgina comes in this room to chill.
Yes,
sometimes,
I do.
and to get away from me.
Yeah.
And you sit.
And you sitting in your chair.
And you sit listening to that clock ticking, and
Yeah.
as soon as I come in here and we're going to work in here now, I have to take the clock out because
Yeah.
you would, lovely listeners, be able to hear that clock ticking
They might find it comforting
in the
as well.
background all the way through this podcast, which would be pretty annoying, actually, wouldn't it? So that was Don't Bogart the Finger Monkey. Factoid Android is here.
Hello, Brian and Georgina.
Hello, Factoid Android. What have you got for us this week?
Here is my quality factoid. Goldfish do not have a 3-second memory.
Wow, that really is a bit of a bombshell.
I mean, it's not, though, is it? How long is the goldfish's memory, then?
The memory span of a goldfish is 3 months. Factoid Android.
A goldfish remembers things for 3 months. How do you prove all
Well,
this?
that's the first thing that sprang to my mind, actually. I mean, I think this is, as factoids go, that produced by this machine, right?
Yes.
That's one of the most interesting factoids we've had thus far.
Yeah,
right?
but it's a fairly low bar.
But how do you prove it? I mean, they must have shown a goldfish something, and then 3 months later tested it.
Yeah.
On whether it remembered it. That would be the only way to prove that, wouldn't it? One way or the other.
Well, I mean, they can't just have a 3-second memory, because I know that when I went towards our goldfish bowl, when we had Florence and the Machine, they definitely came to the surface ready for food. So they do remember from day to day.
That's only one thing, though, isn't it? Just food. I mean,
That's a bit like you.
you didn't actually. Sometimes when you came into the room, Florence and the machine would actually swim up to the glass,
Yes.
to look at you.
Yeah.
But they weren't remembering you. They weren't thinking, "Oh, that's people that we've seen before."
Yeah.
Every time we came in, they thought this was a new person coming into the room, which must have been very exciting for them. To be fair. They must have thought there were hundreds of people walking through that room all the time. If every time, anyway, apparently not.
No.
Apparently 3 months.
3 months.
So
okay.
Thank you, Factoid Android,
Yeah.
for that. That is one of your better efforts so far. Up next on Sowerby and Luff Deluxe, it's Matters Arising.
Sowerby and Luff Deluxe.
So what are the important pressing matters arising this week, Georgina?
The important and pressing matters this week is an advert that annoys me. It's the new Argos advert where I think it's 3D animated, and there's a little
CG, yeah,
CG, and there's a little doll and a dinosaur.
A plastic dinosaur.
And a new pillow or something is put on the sofa, and the dinosaur says it's going to go and make friends with the pillow, but it trips over and lands on the pillow in a fairly sexual manner. So
it's creepy, isn't it?
Yeah. I find the whole thing quite disturbing.
And the doll actually says something like, "Oh, I'll leave you two to it," or
yes,
as if there is going to be some kind of sexual encounter
between the
plastic
stuffed dinosaur and the pillow.
I was very concerned by this the first time I saw it, because I was thinking, this pillow is not inviting this dinosaur.
It isn't. There's no consent given, I don't
jump
think.
on top of it.
Yeah.
So it's, from my point of view, that is, having had all my training
yes.
right, as a manager in one of my jobs, that's inappropriate. Touching, right?
Yeah.
A plastic dinosaur just bowling up to a cushion.
Yes.
An anthropomorphized cushion.
It isn't, though, because it doesn't say anything, does it?
Well, in which case it's just a cushion.
Yeah.
But
so maybe that's how they're substantiating it?
Yeah, we have to ask ourselves, is that inappropriate?
It's a plastic dinosaur and it's a cushion.
Is the behaviour of the plastic dinosaur inappropriate or not? Interestingly, that you should mention that, because I've got something to talk about advertising later on as well.
Okay.
I've got a complaint, a major complaint about an advert. So it's interesting that we've got two advert complaints on one programme from different directions.
We're always watching, always listening, always commenting.
Staying with the TV, Clive Myrie.
Clive Myrie is doing a lovely tour of Italy. Now, he's a newsreader, he's a news presenter, and he's very efficient, and he's a great journalist. And as he goes around Italy, we are playing a drinking game, because we noticed within the first 2 episodes, he says, "Oh, I'll send a photograph to my wife, Catherine," or "I'll buy one of these for my wife, Catherine." And he does it up to we've counted 6, I think, in total.
I think 7 is the record now.
7 is the record. Now, I don't really understand. I mean, in one of the programmes, he said, "My wife, Catherine, is a furniture restorer," about 5 times. Now, I don't want to be a poop at the party here, but isn't that undue prominence for his wife, Catherine?
That is exactly what that is. That's what the BBC calls undue prominence.
I mean,
you can mention something once, mention it a couple of times, but when you get up to mentioning it as many times as Clive Myrie has mentioned it in that series, then he is basically using the excuse of buying his wife Catherine.
Yes.
Take a drink.
Buying
his wife Catherine something and mentioning that she is a
furniture restorer. Yes.
Now, if say 3 million people are watching that programme, a certain number of them are going to be Googling that.
Yes.
What's Clive Myrie's wife's name?
What is this?
Oh, and look, here is her.
Is she called Catherine Myrie?
Here's her furniture restoring business.
I need. Now we could go to her with our sofa. I
just happen to need some furniture restored, they will say. What better person to restore it than Clive Myrie's wife, Catherine?
Okay, yeah. But I mean, it is undue. But also, I mean, it makes it. I can thoroughly recommend it as a drinking game, because it's a beautiful programme.
It's a lovely show.
Italy.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes round all the on-the-nose places, doesn't he? He looks at all the, he went to Venice, he tried to punter gondola and all the rest of it. It's fairly basic, but Italy is so beautiful. Italy is so beautiful that you can almost smell the air as he's going round.
I almost look forward to it now. I look forward to the drinking game. I load up my gin and tonic
take
ready,
a drink.
so that when the show starts, I know that I can take a drink every time he says my wife Catherine.
My wife Catherine.
We've started to preempt things now. He goes into a pottery shop, for example, to look at the pottery. And we're immediately saying, Catherine's going to get a nice pot.
Stoke your glasses. I think he's going to mention Catherine because her and her whole furniture restoring business would like that pot.
We highly recommend the show, but do charge your glass. And every time he says my wife Catherine, you have to take a drink. And it's getting more. It was only a couple of times at the beginning of the series, but as we've said,
do you think at the beginning the editor was, I better take a few of those out, and towards the end the editor was just thinking, do you know what? It's too late now.
It must have become an in-joke at the BBC. Surely it must have become.
My wife Catherine.
I think next time he does the 6 o'clock news, I think he's going to start slipping mentions of his wife Catherine into the news as well. Like he'll do a piece on the tube strike, for example, and then he'll say, of course, my wife Catherine won't be able to get to work if there's a tube strike.
So this week I'm walking along to the shops, and there's lots of shops either side of the parade in Crouch End. And outside one of the shops, there's a little girl crying and trying to get into the shop, and she's with a man who's her father. And she's starting to scream a little bit, and it's all getting a bit awkward, and she's trying to get into the shop. And she's screaming, I want to be mummy, I want mummy, I want mummy. And at this point, the dad says, and all alarms should go off, he says, is daddy not good enough?
Ooh.
All of me wanted to go,
dear,
that's not a thing to say to a 2-year-old who wants their mummy.
That's not a thing.
You're not going to get the response you want if you say...
That's only going in one direction.
Is daddy not good enough? And the little girl screaming replied, I don't want anything to do with you. And I thought, that's harsh, but not unexpected.
That's very sad, but also very funny. That was Matters Arising. Still to come on Sowerby and Luff Deluxe, the latest edition of Georgina's Corridors of Conspiracy.
It's a great one this week.
Another word that is nice to say. And Georgina's last chance to name the thing that sounds like this.
To listen to the full-length version of this podcast, go to patreon.com/Studio Senseless and become a patron of Sowerby and Luff Deluxe.